All right, guys, I got the S3 upper and lower control arms for the front of my Gen 3 Can-Am. These are for the 2023 and up XMR700, new body style, new frame Can-Am. So I'm pretty pissed off about them, to be honest, but let's just start with the unboxing. They came in this huge box, which was completely full of paper and bubble wrap and foam, and they were wrapped extremely well. So 10 out of 10 for their shipping department and their boxing and stuff. Very well protected. There's not a single scratch on the powder coat anywhere. Unfortunately, the powder coat is the wrong color, which is my first complaint. I ordered red, Can-Am red, and I got black. Pretty pathetic. But anyway, the powder coat was well protected. And they took about 3 weeks to come in. I ordered them as soon as they were available because everybody wanted me to test them. I really usually wouldn't buy a product that's this overpriced, but people asked me to test them, so I did. So it took about 3 weeks to come in because I had to get powder coated. So they called me to tell me that, and they also tried to sell me the rear arms, and I told them that the fronts were way too expensive, so I'm not buying the rear. And they made some comment about how, oh, well, you don't even understand what you're getting. And I was like, well, I know what I'm getting. There's no magic here, right? It's an arched arm. It's got a 1-inch lift built into it and a 2-inch rake. That's about it. Yes, there is some brackets, I think, to relocate the shocks. That looks like a frame stiffener, actually. But I think this is to relocate the shocks, maybe to bring them forward because it's a forward arm, or maybe there's some lift built into it. I say maybe because even though these overpriced control arms were $1,000, they came with no instructions. And there's no instructions on the website. And they don't have a YouTube video installation on these yet. So not super happy with this company in general. They sent me the wrong color. They were overpriced. But my big complaint is these bushings. So in 2023, on Outlander Gen 3, Can-Am finally switched over to an automotive style control arm bushing. What I mean by that is my factory bushings are solid rubber, and they actually involve the rubber deflecting inside the bushing to get the twist. That's awesome because it keeps mud and sand out of the bushing. These are like the old school Polaris Can-Am style bushing where you press in some plastic sleeves and then you press in this spacer in here, and the spacer rotates inside the plastic sleeve. Now, I'm sure this manufacturer is going to get all butthurt and comment, oh, these are some special plastic. They're Delrin or PTFE, or I don't know what they're going to call them. I've tried every kind of these plastic bushings, and I've never been happy with them. They squeak, they get mud and sand in them, they wear quickly, and I just much prefer an automotive style bushing like you get on a Honda. They last forever. There's a reason Honda 300s from 1988 have original control arm bushings, and the reason is they're not these kind of bushings. So these are the most expensive control arms I've ever purchased, and they come with a pretty cheap solution for the bushing. So I'm not happy about that. I'm not happy that they're not the right color, and I'm not happy that they powder coated the shit out of the ball joint interface. So you can buy these arms with ball joints pre-installed. I didn't do that because, again, I think they're already overpriced. I would have preferred to buy these arms raw with no paint on them at all, that I could paint them myself and not have to deal with having to scrape off all this powder coat to get the ball joints pressed in, because you really don't want your ball joint lip sitting against powder coat or your snap ring, right? So I'm gonna have to get all that off there, get it installed, and then hit it with some paint. You could probably press them in just like this, but again, you really want a metal-to-metal interface between your ball joint and your control arm. Onto the control arms themselves, the actual fabrication is really nice. All the welds look good, really nice thick shock tab. I like this preformed ball joint mount. Like I said, I really like the workmanship. I just don't like the design of the bushings. I think they're going to be reliable. They seem really overbuilt for something that's going to be on an ATV. They definitely had portals in mind when they made these. So they're, you can run portals on them. You're not going to twist one of these arms. They have little tabs to put zip ties for your brake lines, I assume. Yeah, what else to tell you? Oh, it's kind of goofy. So most of them use these big bushings and these big inserts. But on the lower control arm, it looks like I guess that's the front. The front is a lot smaller. So it uses this little bushing instead of these bigger ones. So that's going to be even higher wear, right? Because the smaller the bushing is, the more wear for the same amount of travel. So that's a pretty tiny bushing that's going in here. Kind of reminds you of the Polaris, where on the upper control arms, the rear bushing is real tiny. But yeah, I'm not sure what the deal with that was. Probably to get some clearance in the frame, they used a smaller piece of pipe here than they did on the other ones. what else to say about these? They do make a rear set that also has rake. They recommend running those so you can run like a 34. I was already running 33s with very minimal rubbing up front. Like I said, I really only got these because several people reached out and asked me to get them and test them. So I like to oblige my subscribers and stuff, so I did it. But just because they're using shitty old school style bushings, I really wouldn't recommend spending $1,000 on this. It's going to be a marginal upgrade, maybe an inch lift, whatever. You can achieve that with preload pretty easily. And unless you really need the forward rake, you can clear big tires on this machine with just some little trimming. What the forward rake's really doing is letting you run a bigger offset wheel, because when it swings, and now it won't swing into the floorboard with the rake, and the bigger offset wheel will keep it away from the frame here. I don't like running big offset wheels or wheel spacers because it causes all kinds of other issues with tie rods, ball joints, bearings, looking like an idiot, covering you in mud. I don't like wide wheels to begin with. But, you know, S3 definitely does kind of market their products towards like the show bike fuckboy part of the off-roading field, which just makes me want to throw up. You can obviously see that if you look at their advertising. But yeah, so my 3 complaints, again, they're overpriced. These were $1,000. Super ATV sells the same stuff for, I don't know, 500 bucks. Most S3's other ATV control arms are around 600, 650. So they really are super proud of these for some reason. So I don't like the price. I don't like that they shipped me the wrong color. It's not a huge deal because, like I said, I don't really care what my stuff looks like, but it's just like, come on guys, get organized. If you're going to be that expensive, at least be organized. And the third problem is these bushings. This is my big complaint. We'll see how long they last before they get a bunch of slack in them and, you know, start making noise. I should mention that one potential benefit of this type of bushing is that when they're new and they're tight, they will have less deflection than the factory bushing because they're a harder material. And these are pretty big, right? So if you were like racing this thing hardcore, suspension deflection is a big deal at high speed. It's not a big deal for an ATV that's on 34-inch tires, right? Suspension deflection is irrelevant when you have that much rubber flopping around. And it's an ATV that doesn't go very fast to begin with. So yeah, this is what manufacturers do to be lazy, because you can just weld a piece of pipe onto the A-arm instead of having like a spherical bushing that's sealed. Even Super ATV's Atlas Pro arms on my Pioneer 1000, on the upper control arm, they have the spherical sealed bushing, which is great because that's the OEM style bushing. So I really wish more of these aftermarket companies would at least include stuff that's OEM style, OEM quality in their expensive aftermarket parts instead of, you know, going to this cheap crap. But my Super ATV Atlas Pro arms do use these kind of bushings on the bottom control arms on the Pioneer, and they already have a ton of slack in them. You can move them back and forth. And they're already, you know, they're already making noises and stuff. And these aren't greasable. There's no grease zerks or anything like that. So once they start making noise, I guess you could disassemble them and grease them, but you're going to see a lot of wear on these pins from mud and sand getting in here. So it's really just going to be replace the bushings and the inserts pretty frequently, like the old Polaris side-by-sides and stuff. That's my 2 cents. I'll have an install video coming soon, and then we'll have some testing videos. Yeah, that's my opinion.